Entrance ticket, exit ticket, think, pair, share, marking the text, 10-2-2. What are they talking about? Those were exactly my thoughts in 2012 when AVID for Higher Education was introduced at Nash Community College. For 12 years, I had taught using the stand and deliver method, kind of what I'm doing today. And I thought my students were successful. I thought I was being successful as a teacher. But was my definition of success clouded because I had spent so much time to deliver that solid lecture and presentation of the material? Had I missed the other half of the coin? Their ability to retain, synthesize, apply the lesson that was being taught. Yes, they may be able to regurgitate what I had taught them on a test, but long-term learning and comprehension just wasn't happening in my classroom. I'll be honest, I was hesitant when AVID was first introduced on our campus. We have all been through educational initiatives that were supposed to revolutionize the way we teach. But would it end up being just a fad? Would AVID be just another fad for us as educators? AVID visited our campus during the 2012-2013 school year, and I attended the sessions, experimented with the strategies, and do you know what I discovered? They worked. My students were more engaged in the classroom. I was more engaged in the classroom. My classroom was no longer the sage on the stage of old. We interacted with each other, and learning took place. Where's the proof? In higher ed, we like data, we like proof. We got to make sure it's working, right? Well, here's my proof. I taught major American writers, as Robin stated before and after AVID was introduced on our campus. Before AVID, I stood in front of the classroom, discussed the piece of writing, offered my interpretation of said writing, and asked questions for comprehension. When asked the questions, I felt like that scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller? 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 No one answered, crickets chirped. Has anyone ever been in that situation? Show your hands right now. Have you ever been in that situation? Yes, you have. It is a horrible feeling, isn't it? Oh, it's awful. It's not great. After AVID became part of our teaching culture, my classroom changed dramatically. Students talked, learned, comprehended, and retained the material being discussed. Something as simple as turn to your elbow partner and discuss what you think the symbolism of the pink rainbows and Young Goodman Brown means turned into a discussion that ranged from what colors symbolize, to a woman's role in society, to the place religion plays in our lives. I left class completely energized for the rest of the day, and so did my students. So how did AVID change me? AVID for Higher Education opened my eyes to strategies that help students become active participants in the classroom. It allowed me to transition students from dependent to independent learners. I no longer have to have all the answers. I know that by making students question, ponder, and look for the answers, that they are learning and retaining more. How do I know this worked? There are two simple pieces of evidence that I have for the transformation AVID made in my classroom. The first revolves around grades. Before, roughly 50% of students in major American writers passed with a C or higher. 50% is horrible. It is, no one should be proud of that. No. I had failed as a teacher because half of my class did not learn the material and had to repeat my course, or take it with somebody else. After I started using AVID strategies, roughly 90% of my students passed with a C or higher, and I did not change my grading whatsoever. Yes, grades are important, but what is more important to me as a teacher is the learning that was taking place in that classroom. The second piece of evidence is a change in classroom climate. Students came prepared and arrived early. Tardiness was a thing of the past. Not only were they prepared and ready to discuss, but they didn't want to leave. They wanted to be engaged with the works of literature outside of the classroom. You heard me right. We continued to walk down the hallway and discuss literature as we were moving to our next class. This class is one example of how AVID opened my eyes to a different, more productive way of teaching. It also empowered me to allow students to take responsibility for their learning. I used to believe that I went to school to become a teacher and that I got paid to dump all the knowledge that I have into the students. I was wrong. The strategies I learned helped me see that I don't have to do all the work for my students to learn. In fact, when I relinquish my control and help them learn how to discover the answers, they learn and retain the information. I know what you're thinking. Oh, that was that special class. You know, we've all had the special class. They always do well. Yes, they were a great class, but I have seen similar results in other classes. My writing and critical thinking classes tend to perform better when I use different strategies to engage their learning. When planning a lesson, it doesn't take any more time to incorporate these strategies into that plan. Hopefully this week you have learned just how easily it is to incorporate different strategies into your classroom. So what are they talking about? They're talking about research-proven strategies that will enhance student learning and your development as a teacher. Entrance tickets, a great way to assess if students are prepared for class. Exit tickets, a quick way to assess if your students retain the material for that day's lessons. Think, Pair, Share, one of my personal favorites. Ask students a question about a lesson or activity, have them think about it or write it down, and then pair up and discuss it. And then you as an instructor can decide whether to share as a whole class or move on with the day's lesson. Marking the text helps the students become active readers and retain the information longer. Lastly, 10-2-2. In higher ed, especially in the community colleges, we are content-based educators, so it had never occurred to me that I might want to pause and have students reflect about what they had just learned before moving on to the next option. So 10-2-2 was the greatest thing that introduced into my classroom. 10 to 15-minute lecture, 2-minute pause for reflection, and 2-minute question and answer session about the material. So you may even be thinking, what is she talking about? Well, I'll leave it to Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." Thank you, and involve your students today.